For many living in the Empire, the land beyond the Valentinian Wall is a mystery. It does not make sense for a desert to form so close to a climate similar to the kingdom of Ingesville. According to Aluvium's top researchers, the Sun Elves, it was not always a desert. A long time ago, it was much like the temperate forest that the people of Ingesville live in now. What changed was the introduction of the Oasis Walkers. These fucking monstrosities wander from place to place looking for water sources to drink, completely using them up of all water they came across. Standing at about 30 feet high and large enough to fit small villages on their backs. You can see why these things over time destroyed lush forests and turned them into fucking dune. This cooked everyone living in the same place as the Oasis Walkers, doomed to live in harsh conditions with little food and water. The race of this land would later become known to the people of Aluvium as the Chun. For as long as they could remember, they have been nomads following the Oasis Walkers around to stay close to a source of water. The Oasis Walkers only kept them alive because they would protect and clean the Oasis Walker. An intelligent being would realize that living in the desert is just as enjoyable as suicide and would do anything they could to leave. Not the Chun, you see. These people are the very definition of brawn over brains. Instead of using precious time and calories thinking about the way they could solve their problem, they'd rather just mog it and beat it into non-living. It makes sense, given their conditions. You don't grow up in a desert where starvation and thirst are the norm and decide to become a pussy. Granted, those wouldn't be issues if the Chun understood moderation. But that'll be settled soon. To this world, our hero, Mulham Ibn Shaddad, is born to his parents, Shaddad and Nasreen. Mulham growing up was much unlike the other children. He was physically weak due to having a weak immune system and being sick a lot. This was a great embarrassment to his family. Healthy children were needed to give the tribe strong warriors. Due to limited animals, raiding was the second best option to provide your tribe with a steady source of food. This need created a warrior culture for the Chun, where to be even taken seriously, you needed to prove your strength. Instead of participating in sparring or training as the other children, Wilhelm would spend most of his days in bed. Due to having nothing else to do while sick, he would spend a lot of time simply thinking. With his mother by his side, taking care of him, he'd constantly ask her questions, as young children tend to do. Nasreen would try her best to answer them, but she soon found herself outwitted by her son, and she ran out of answers for him. Years would pass, and Shaddad would only grow more and more embarrassed by his son. He had an important role in the tribe, being the head of a warrior band, which, in importance, sat only second to the chieftain himself. Soon his men would mock him to his face, and he began to lose authority. He'd take all of his frustrations out on Mulham, sometimes physically. Nasreen did not enjoy seeing her son beat, but did not try hard enough to stop it. This upbringing shaped Mulham's mind to be extremely cynical, which was only counterbalanced by his mother, trying her best to give the young boy hope. Still, a lot did not make sense to him. Why was it that their customs called for such ways of doing things? Did Mulham not have any value due to something that was completely out of his control? By this point, he was still young, but could tell that he was different from others in his tribe. The chieftain's son and heir, Antara, would routinely chastise Mulham, to find out every time Mulham, using his quick wit, would insult right back and embarrass him. Of course, every time, this would end with Mulham getting beaten, now being struck not only by his peers, but also his father. Mulham knew things had to change. However, every time he had brought it up to his mother, and every other adult, they lacked answers for his complaints. His mother would answer with a shrug, his father would only smack him for asking such questions, and everyone else would not take such questions seriously due to Mulham's lack of strength. He decided that things had to change, and he would be the force of said change. He first began lifting heavy rock to make sad head voices disappear. Day in and day out, he'd find objects that he struggled to lift, then routinely would keep doing it. Starting small, of course, with the casual ridicule from whoever was watching, but eventually the ridicule became less and less frequent with each exchange of objects. The dad originally kept quiet about it, but as the comments started about how pathetic it was that Mulham was trying to improve himself, he went home to settle the issue. He approached Mulham doing his workouts and went to hit him, but was surprised that Mulham caught his fist. Then he was further surprised that Mulham began to beat the shit out of him. His father never got in his way again, and for the first time in his life, felt pride for his son. As months would pass, Mulham got stronger and stronger, and then began sparring. He had many challenges due to his reputation, and his father's new reputation, which he got after he'd been beaten by Mulham. Mulham would sweep house effortlessly. This gained the disdain of his childhood bully, Antara, who would soon take the reins of tribe chieftain. His father was getting old, and wanted to begin teaching Antara how to lead the tribe properly. As was tradition, both father and son would lead a raid on a tribe that was sited nearby. Mulham, wanting to test his newly formed skills in battle, asked to join them. Antara agreed to bring him along, hoping he'd be killed in the battle, only for the complete opposite to happen. Mulham destroyed his opponents, stole their stored food and water, and brought them back to the village. Mulham was slowly becoming revered for the first time in his life, and he was addicted to that feeling. He wanted to do more for his people, and his mind began to wander back to his childhood about how things were and how they could improve. For a couple of years, Mulham would come up with plans on improving living in the desert, fighting anyone who challenged him, and continuously raiding with his tribe. Eventually, people's opinions on him began to change. Slowly, he went from being a hated outcast to a respected member of his community. Even his dad began to feel a sense of pride. Mulham felt nothing but contempt for his father and those who saw him as a freak a few years ago. Eventually, he was ready to move his plan into action. Antara's father had just passed, and he was now in complete control of the tribe. Mulham had hoped that he had impressed Antara through that liqa, which was a monthly tribe meeting to discuss the people's concerns and problems. Perhaps Antara was willing to hear some of Mulham's plans out. Of course he fucking didn't. Antara still harbored nothing but jealousy for Mulham. He wanted the people's love, just like Mulham had. Mulham couldn't let this fool get in the way of his plans, and therefore challenged him to a toshe for control of the tribe. Traditional fight laws are straightforward, and were created to ensure that only the strongest families gained control over the tribe. The chief can deny a challenge, but it is usually met with a great shame and could lead to being overthrown. Still, the victor of the fight inherited everything, and that's everything. House, job, family, and all. Tribe members gathered in a circle as Mulham and Antara took center stage. Mulham began pounding the shit out of Antara's face, and only after feeling blood splash on his fist did he stop to realize what he was doing. He had already won the title of chieftain. Was killing his childhood rival necessary? Then realizing how stupid he was being, he strangled Antara without a second's hesitation, rising to lead his tribe to a life of glory and luxury.